Parker is an award-winning theatre director, actor, and the former artistic director of the Hope Theatre, where he won the OFFIE Award for Best Artistic Director.
He has a passion for bringing his vivid visual imagination and physical approach to his storytelling and relishes a collaborative process.
Hello, Matthew. How are you doing today?
Hello. Yeah, I'm good, thank you. How are you two?
Not bad,
Good,
not bad.
thank
How are you,
you.
Christian? You good?
I am very well, thank you.
Well, lovely. We got two Matthews on the podcast today, haven't we? So I'll just be I'll be Matt. I'll be the lesser formed name, and you can stay as Matthew. I think that is only fair. Thank you so much for coming on today and talking to us about your work and giving up your knowledge. It's hugely appreciated. We'd love to just crack on into it, really. So you do so many things, and you still act. That is one of those things, and it was what you did before studying your directing postgrad degree at Drama Studio. So I'd like to ask really to start at the beginning of your career and ask, when did you first get into acting, and how did this develop into you deciding to work in this industry as a whole?
Sure. I have been performing in some way or involved in the performing arts for 40 years now. I started when I was 5. And that was a dance school. So I started training as a dancer when I was 5. There's no sort of performing arts background in my family at all. I'm from a working class northern little place, and my mum was a din lady and my dad was a bus driver. But we went to see a panto. I think it was a panto. I think it had Russ Abbott in it, in Stockport, where I'm from. And I sort of said to my mum that I wanted to get up there. I wanted to do it. And she went home and she got the yellow pages out, and she found us something called a stage academy. We didn't know it was a dance school, it was just a stage academy, and enrolled me. And that was dance. So that was ballet and tap and modern and jazz and all sorts of stuff. And I was there for almost 10 years. And as a result of that, I started doing bits and bobs of acting, small amounts of TV work, mainly theatre. Had an agent as a kid. So I've sort of always done it. And then youth theatre, and then on to Bretton Hall, where I did an acting degree. I went there when I was 19, and then sort of left there early 20s, moved down to London, did a little bit of acting for a very, very, very small amount of time. By this time, I'd known I'd wanted to be a theatre director, I think since early teens. I didn't quite know how to do it though. I didn't know how someone like me from my background and how you did that. So I sort of stopped acting in my early 20s. Did little bits and bobs occasionally, but kind of went no, because I just want to be directing. I really want to be directing, and the more I act, the more frustrating it is that I'm not directing.
The other side,
yeah. So I stopped. And then I returned to it 2 Decembers ago, so 14 months ago, by chance. Auditioned for a show and got in that, and then so I was 44 when I went back on stage, and so I've been acting now, as well as directing and doing various other things for the last 14 months, and have an acting agent now as again. And then there was a gap in the middle where I did nothing about theatre, and then also I still am a director. Does that make sense? It's sort of acting has sort of bookended my life so far.
Yeah, absolutely. What made you want to train as a director then? What was it specifically about that?
Well, I've always wanted to direct, and I directed The Wizard of Oz at infant school. What I've always wanted to do. I used to direct shows with me and my sister, and invite all the old ladies who lived over the road to come and watch when I was a kid. And it's just always what I've wanted to do. And I didn't really know, as I said, how to do it. And when I started looking into it, it's kind of like, oh well, it's posh people, and it's people who went to Oxford and Cambridge, and that's great. But it just felt like a world away from me. Like it's not the sort of thing I would be allowed to do. I think most people in this industry in some way have imposter syndrome at some point in their life, but it certainly felt like something that I wouldn't be allowed to do. I started directing with an amateur theatre group in my 20s, late 20s. Yeah, just before I turned 30. I directed a youth theatre production of Grim Tales, and then I directed a youth theatre production of Ionesco's The Bald Prima Donna, which is quite a thing to do with kids. Absurdism. It's quite something trying to teach a 13-year-old about existentialism. And around that time, my friend and my partner at that time, who's now my husband, were like, "You're really good at this. You really should be doing this." And I was like, "I know." And I had a normal job at this point. I had a normal job in an office working for a housing association, which I loved, absolutely loved. But like, you should be doing this. And, like, you should train. And they sort of staged a sort of intervention where one night in the pub they put a load of prospectuses down for drama schools and went, "We think you should apply for a directing course." And I knew where I wanted to go. I knew exactly what course I wanted to go. I knew that I wanted to go to DSL, to Drama Studio London, because I knew about that course and I knew someone had been on it, and it sounded amazing because it had such a high practical content. So I applied to 4 places and did my 4 auditions and got into DSL. And I was 32. Yeah, I think so. I didn't think I'd get in because they don't do the course anymore. Kate McGregor and I, who were the 2 on it, were the last 2 in 2008-9. They only take 1 or 2 people a year, so I didn't think I'd get on it. I was determined to get on it, but I didn't think I'd get on it first go, and I did. And that was a 1-year course, and then I came out of there when I was 33, 34, which was 12 years ago.
Cool.
Fantastic.
What was your experience like at Drama Studio? Because if it's anything like I hear actors that go there, it's really like the most intense drama school going. Was it like that as a director?
It is. I mean, they do all sorts of different courses now and different lengths of courses, and they do a 3-year degree courses now, which I've taught on a little bit. But at the time, it was 2 1-year courses: the 1-year acting course and the 1-year directing course. Oh no, actually, the year I started was the year I went was the first year they started the 2-year course. But generally, it's known for being a very intensive postgraduate course. So, your youngest person has already been is 21 because you've already gone to university, so it's a postgrad course. So they do have all sorts of age groups, and we had people of all sorts of age groups. We had people in their 60s, 50s, 40s, a few of us in our 30s. Majority of people in their 20s, probably. The directing course is incredibly intense because it's only 9 months, and there's only 2 of you, and it's at least 12-hour days. You're in from 8:45 for roll call, and you're doing all sorts of classes during the day, and joining the actors for some classes, and having your own classes, and then rehearsing your own projects in the evenings. So yeah, I mean, you sort of have to stop your entire life for it. But I was so hungry for it and felt so lucky to be doing it. And there's not a day goes by that I don't use something from that. That training was amazing. And I knew I wanted to go there because I knew about it. I knew someone had been, as I said. I mean, it was exhausting, I changed. I'd learned so much, so quickly. It's remarkable what the amount of stuff I learned and the amount of skills and that were honed or found anew, or and the confidence it gives you in being able to do all sorts of different genres, and because you have to do all sorts from Shakespeare to non-verbal stuff with no dialogue, to Chekhov, to writing your own adaptation of something, all sorts. But it's very intense because there's only 2 of you, and that is hard when there's just 2 of you, because you know what it's like when you're at drama school or any sort of vocational training like that that's not academic based, that's based on or a skill or talent or blah, blah, you can't help but compare yourselves to other people who do it all the time. When there's two of you, that's so intense.
Yeah.
And we're so different, which was brilliant because I learned so much from my course mate, Kate McGregor, who's a brilliant director. I learned so much from her. And so much from the tutors, and many of whom I'm still in touch with, some of which I've cast in my own projects now and work with. And yeah, I loved it. It changed my life.
That's fantastic. And as you said, you had the hunger for it. So once you combine that with the training, you sort of then that force is complete, really, and you go out into the big bad industry with those skills. And I'd love to talk about when you're working early days as a director, and how difficult is it to find shows to direct, especially when you don't have that padded CV yet? Because to me, it seems that it's hard enough to get an acting job and to get a creative team to trust you with a part. How difficult is it to get a producer or a playwright or whoever it might be that has shows that they want to get a director for? How hard is it to get them to trust you with that work, especially when you're a fresh graduate?
Well, I'd say almost impossible. I'm hang on, I graduated in 2009, so what's that? How long ago is that? 12 years? 12 years. Yeah. I've applied for all sorts of directing placements, directing jobs for the last 12 years. I've only ever had an interview, I think 3 times in 12 years.
Wow.
Can't get in the room. Using in the room there, do you see?
Oh, the branding is on point.
It's so hard because I have found that I'm very lucky, and I have been able to direct a lot, and I am now at a stage where I am now being commissioned to do, like theatres are saying, please would you come and direct something. That's only happened in the last year, 18 months. Prior to that, I basically was generating all my own work. I set up 2 theatre companies when I left drama school, and went straight to Edinburgh with one piece, and just have been constantly creating my own work. And then 5 years into my career, I got the artistic directorship of The Hope. So obviously that that
Yeah,
really
that helps
helped,
a bit.
because then you've got a theatre. You go,
Yeah.
well, I'm going to put this on. And I think I did 11 shows. I directed 11 shows when I was at The Hope, which is a lot, actually, when you look at what artistic directors often do. That's a lot. There's one year I did 3. Yeah, so mainly I generate my own work. I sort of, as I said, I went straight to Edinburgh with something that got nominated for a stage award, which meant that I came to London then, back down to London, 2 months after graduating with this stage award nomination for the show that
Brilliant.
I'd written and directed, which meant that Fringe Theatres opened my email and met with me. Because that currency is something. Do you know what I mean? But
Totally.
also, you've just got to ask, haven't you? So I kind of go, what theatres do I want to work at? What work do I want to do? Where do I want to put it on? It really helps to be focused in where you want your work to be on. Like, I really wanted to do something at the Jack Studio, the Broccoli Jack, because I loved the theatre. I really liked that theatre. And within a couple of years, I was associate director there, because I was like, hey, I want to do stuff here. I wanted to do something at the Old Red Lion, and I have. But it's hard. It's really hard to get people to sort of take a risk on your own project. But it's even harder to get someone to employ you to direct something.
Yeah.
I still consider myself to be an emerging director or an early career director, in the sense that until last year, everything I directed had been in a 50-seat theatre and never bigger, and usually in rooms attached to, above, or underneath pubs. I've never worked in a space bigger than 50 until last year. So it took me 11 years to sort of. Basically, I've worked on the Fringe for the last sort of 10, 11 years, and I love the Fringe. I absolutely love it, but I don't want to be doing that for the rest of my life.
Mm.
I want to work in bigger spaces, in different spaces, and new spaces, and around the country and around the world, not just the London Fringe. And I'm sure you're going to ask me why I left the Hope at some point. And part of that is because I was doing really well, and it's lovely, and I was making a name for myself and creating really successful work and creating a successful theatre. But it, you kind of want to push the ceiling up and push the walls out and go, what's next? What's next? I waited till my mid-30s for this career, and I'm 45 now, and I want to get on with it. Do you know what I mean? It's like I'm ambitious. I have all sorts of ideas, and in terms of the work I choose to do, I mean, I've got a list in my file of facts. I mean, literally, that's how old-fashioned I am. I've got a file of facts that I got when I was 13, and it's got a piece of paper in it, and it's got all the plays I want to direct. And I waited for, some of them I've waited, like I did the Cherry Orchard in 2014. So how old would I have been? I was 39. I first read that play when I was 16. I've wanted to direct it since I was 16. And then I
That's
finally got to do it when I was 39. I've had it in my head since I was 16.
It's
Do you know
that
what I mean? So it's like,
visualization, isn't it? You've said that, haven't
yeah,
you? You knew you wanted to direct. You knew you wanted to go to drama studio. You knew you wanted to work at those theatres, and it's that
yeah.
sort of one-mindedness or that certainty that seems to have got you there.
It's that, bloody-minded sort of mix of idiocy and ambition, determination. And, the way I was brought up was you're not going to get anything. Nothing's going to be handed to you. You've got to work for it. You've got to. And that was part of the training at DSL as well. There's a wonderful, now late director, Sonia Fraser, who said to me at graduation, she saw my graduation piece, and she said, "You'll do well, but you're going to have to work really hard. Just take everything that's given to you, take every job, constantly work, create work as much as you can, do as much as you can." For those first 2 years, I didn't stop trying to create work, or took every little, like all the scratch nights I could possibly get into, or direct a 10-minute piece for, as much as I possibly could for those first 2 years. Absolutely slogged myself. I kind of haven't really stopped doing that, really, because I love it. I feel really lucky to do this, and I bloody love it. And directing is I believe it's what I was born to do. So I never ever stop thinking about what's the next thing, what's next, what's next, what's next. We're
Yeah.
watching The West Wing at the moment, and for about the 5th time through, and I've forgotten how much President Bartlett says. Right, what's next? I've forgotten how much that seeped into my brain in my 20s. That you've got to keep moving, you've got to keep improving. You're only as good as your next thing, and your next thing, and your next thing. And you've got to
Yeah.
keep learning, you've got to keep training yourself, and you've got to keep opening doors, and opening doors for other people, which is the thing that I love, which I got to do with the Hope.
Yeah.
And
Speaking about learning, the audition process is something we can always learn more about. What do you want to see from actors when they come in to audition for you? Are there any sort of common mistakes actors tend to make?
what do I want to see? Joy. The joy of performing. I
Mm.
am currently teaching audition technique for theatre at a drama school, and it's something I've done on and off for 10 years. And I've run, demystifying the audition process behind the panel, and all sorts of workshops over the years, because I get really frustrated that actors don't see that an audition, and this is theatre auditions, I'm not talking about commercials or television. I don't work in those mediums at the moment, so I can't. And I've been in those auditions as an actor, but the auditions that I run as a director, you, you want people to you want to connect with people, and you want people to come in and say, "Hello, this is who I am. This is what I have. Would you like this?"
Mm.
Not, oh, because the way I audition, I usually send stuff from the play. I very, very rarely ask people to come in and just do their own choice of monologue, or because I don't think you're not able to compare. If I'm directing a play, then I'd like everyone to come in and do the same bit, because then I get to see who they are and what they bring to the character. Because who you're employing is an individual and a human being, and I want to know who they are. Because everybody can do it. You won't be in the room auditioning for me if I didn't think, you know, my process is really, really rigorous in terms of shortlisting, longlisting, and shortlisting. And so by the time we're in an audition together, I think you can do the job, and hopefully you think you can do the job. So it's just, what do you do with it? Often you'll find people go, oh, well, I didn't know what you wanted, so I've kept it neutral. I mean, I don't know what that means. I don't know what neutral is. And I kind of,
It's
I want to
impossible.
scream, well, of course you don't know what I want. I don't know what I want.
Yeah.
I haven't a
Bring something.
clue. Why don't you make it what you do? So joy and someone coming in going, here are the apples I've brought. Would you like these?
Yeah, I like that analogy. Okay, well,
And also just remembering that it's a chance to perform, and you know, I've come back to, I'm acting again now, and I'm loving that, and I feel really lucky to be doing that as well. And I've had a couple of jobs, which has been really nice. Feel really lucky. But you know, auditions, live theatre auditions are few and far between, particularly the past year. So let's remember that it's an opportunity to act. And all anybody wants when you're sat, I was going to say sat behind the table, but I never sit behind the table in an audition. I don't like the barrier. I always have the table to my side. All anyone wants, all I want is for you to be ace, and for you to have a lovely time, and for you to not think I'm an idiot. Because I get really nervous when I'm auditioning. I get really nervous because I also want the actor to kind of go, okay, he seems to know what he's talking about, or yeah, I can trust him. Because we don't have to be mates, but we are going to spend at least the next 8 weeks working together. We've got to build a rapport. We've got to get on. We've got to trust one another. And I think actors forget that, and I think a lot of the time it's very easy as an actor to get the hierarchy of that situation wrong. I see it as sort of equal. It's like a seesaw that's level. It's not the casting director or the director higher than you, and you are trying to please them. That's not going to work. It's two people coming into a room together and going, here's what I think. Oh, great. Here's what I think. Lovely. Thank you very much. Have a lovely afternoon. Bye-bye. Go and have cake.
Get the cake out. I was going to
I
ask you
have heard from actors that have worked with me that generally it's a pleasant experience to audition for me, and they feel fulfilled, and they're able to do their best. Obviously, sometimes the day just doesn't go your way as an actor, and that's always heartbreaking to watch, particularly if it's somebody I know. I know a lot of actors. I work a lot at drama schools, and I've been in the London Fringe world now for 11 plus years, so I know a lot of people. And it's awful when people come in and the day doesn't go their way. But that doesn't matter. The day didn't go their way. That never mind. We move on, and you know, I've had actors kind of go, "Oh, you're never going to see me again. I'm so sorry. I've really mucked it, really effed it up." It's like, no, you just had a bad day. If you're right for something else, I'll still see it because I really like you. You wouldn't be in the room if I didn't think you were good. Just you had a bad day that day. We all have bad days. Everyone makes a mistake every day. Sorry, that's a lot talking. It's because I'm teaching it at the moment. I'm working with a group of training actors at the moment, which I love doing. And I'm not kind of like this one-man band trying to just get to as many actors as I can to go, it's a chance to perform. It should be about joy. It should be about you doing what you do best. And don't even start to worry about what you think somebody might want or be looking for unless they tell you. But generally, I try and make my casting breakdowns, my spotlight breakdowns really clear from what I think the character is as defined by the text. But after that, it's up to you. You're the actor. You'll be able to do it better than I can. Well, unless it's in my casting bracket, and then of course.
Then you'll be doing it. I was going to ask from the other side of the table, but as you remove the table, what tips can you give to directors on the audition process from working with a casting director to bring the actors in right through to the final casting?
I was trained in how to audition, and
Oh, right.
I'm really thankful that I was. It's quite a traditional process that I go through, but you have to be so clear, and you also have to understand that it's a heck of a lot of admin, and it takes a huge amount of hours and time. It's really hard casting because inherently it's unfair because there are 1,000 people applying for a role and you can only give one of them the job. I mean, that sucks. But it is the job, so you have to suck it up and go, well, that is the job. That is my task here. So I have to be as fair as I can. So I'd say to other directors, be really clear in your breakdown. Give actors clues in your breakdown of what it is you're looking for, as in write the blurb of the play, the marketing blurb, so that they've got an idea of what the style of the production is. Make sure they know how to research you or your theatre or the theatre that's going to be on at. Give them as much information and as many tools as you can so that they come in and do a good job for you and so that they feel able to fly and enjoy themselves. It's not a test. I never ask actors to be off book. I don't see the need. Other people might disagree, but I don't see the need. It's not a test of memory. I take it for granted that if you got the job, you'd know your lines by the time the show opened, because that's just your job to do, isn't it? So I don't need to test that. I know it's different for television and commercials, and other people disagree. So my advice to directors is remove all the elements to feel like a test and try and make it more about being open and allowing people to be creative with you and allowing yourself to be creative and allowing yourself to be surprised. I make sure I have a little 60-second speech for the top of every 10-minute audition so that every time they come in and I ask them to sit down, and I put them at ease as soon as I can by, come on in, grab a seat, just so I can give them a little bit of direction immediately. And then I just talk about the project and talk about why I want to do the project and tell them a little bit about how I feel about it. I think that's a really good thing to do because it allows the actors to just sit and breathe and quiet the screaming in their heads in that moment and the blood pumping in their ears. And then I always have a little chat, and it is a chat. I usually find something on the CV that I know about, or a theatre I know about, or a playwright I know about, or a director that I know, and we have a little chat about something. I think it's really important that we do that. So that would be another bit of advice to directors, like to have a chat to the actor. It's really important because you're going to spend more time chatting with them than you are watching them acting. Because rehearsals is so. Let's make sure we can build a rapport and that we're listening to one another. And and then I don't often redirect, so I think people should come in and do what they want to do, and as long as it's safe, then let them do it. Let them do their thing. Let actors do the acting. They're better at it than you are.
I really like the way there you talk about giving the actors a bit of freedom and that you're not going to push them in a certain direction unless it's really necessary, and the fact you take that time to find that personalized question to an actor because you're told as an actor to find a personalized topic that if you get the opportunity to discuss with the casting team or directing team, just so you know your stuff. I really like that you've reversed that. I'd love to talk about the rehearsal process for these fringe productions. As you say, you've been on the fringe for years and years now, and it's such a highly compressed rehearsal process. You barely have any time, as I'm sure you know. What work do you think is essential to get done before opening night?
So directing a play is, well, it's a sort of captain of the ship analogy. So by the first night, you've got to have the ship sailing with everybody knowing what they're doing in order to make that ship sail. And you start rehearsals with like planks of wood and hammers and nails and some fabric and a sewing machine to make some sails. I don't know how to build a ship.
It's an adaptable metaphor. It works. It runs.
Yeah, but you don't come with the ship all done. So you have to create together. This is how I work. I am reasonably collaborative. I don't know what I want yet because I've no idea. Directing is, can I see it? Can I hear it? Do I believe it? So all the time, in every given moment. That's what you're doing as a director. Can I see them? Can I hear them? Do I believe them? Can I understand what's going on here? You're trying to tell a story and you're trying to create an atmosphere. And hopefully those two things work with one another. What is the story here? What am I hoping that the audience will feel? That's how my work tends to be about. It tends to be about story, and my work is atmosphere. The word atmosphere comes up a lot when people write about my work and talk about my work. It's very atmospheric, or it's very this. It's very moody, or it's very because atmosphere is, as animals, is what we feel. Instinctively, what is this piece making us feel? So what is the story? What is the atmosphere? How am I creating these things? I work really hard and I work really fast. I don't come into a room. I don't come into a rehearsal. My general rehearsal pattern is kind of 2 weeks and then tech dress. It's really fast.
Yeah.
When I was working at the Hope, it would kind of follow a pattern of 13 days rehearsal plus tech. Because it was normally Wednesday to Friday, then Monday to Friday, then tech. So it was like 13 days in tech. So it's fast and it's a short amount of time. So generally, it's really good if the actors are coming in off book for the first day, as much as possible. I think that's all right, because then we can start playing. But unless that's not your process, that's fine. And I just, all right, off we get, and I'll talk to you about where the entrances and exits are, and then you just go, and then I watch, and then I direct. I don't come in having it blocked. Do you know what I mean? I generally have an idea of sort of where the sort of large theatrical moments are, where the line graph of emotion might peak, where the line graph of story might peak and trough. I've investigated the text inside out before rehearsal myself and done all of the sort of actor prepare stuff for every role. I do a lot of text work before rehearsal. And by opening night, I mean, the process I would do on the Fringe was you'd have a couple of shows and then you'd have a press night. So we used to sort of open a show on a Tuesday for a 3-week run. And you do Tuesday, Wednesday, and then your press night would be the Thursday. I still make changes after the first couple of performances, still note, still make changes, make cuts, changes. But once it gets to press night, sort of leave it alone then. It's not mine anymore. It's everybody's, and it exists, and I love a deadline. So I don't tweak, I don't note the show once it's up and running, unless something goes horribly wrong. Unless you read a show report and go, okay, they're dropping that line. They've dropped that line three nights in a row now, or that's broken, I need to fix that, or why are they adding 4 minutes? But generally, once it's up and running, it's up and running. So what do I have to make sure? That everybody knows what they're doing and they don't feel like an idiot, and that everyone knows how to tell the story. Everyone is able to get on stage and listen. And that everyone's able to do it with the pace that it requires, and the size it requires. My work is large, theatrical, big. It's not small kitchen sink drama. My work is theatrical, large, physical. It usually needs to be a lot faster than actors think. It usually needs to be a lot bigger than actors think. As a director, I don't think I will ever not need to keep saying faster or bigger. You can go further. You can go much further with that. You can go much further there. Do you feel like you're at the top? No, you're not. Keep going. And it's just about encouraging. The analogy I use, as well as the ship thing, is sort of plate spinning. And it feels a little bit like plate spinning, like the stick with the spinning the plate on the top. And you've got to get lots of plates spinning, all up and spinning at the same time by the first night. And that's the actors, it's your team, it's your designer, it's your stage management, it's everybody. And I've got to get all of those plates spinning. And throughout the process, some of the plates will start spinning really quickly. And then some of them will just take longer and longer to get going. And then maybe the one that was hitting it from day one will then sort of keep falling off in week 2. And people do have different processes. So I always think, as long as I can get everybody stood in the right place, saying the right thing, feeling the right thing, doing it faster, doing it bigger, by the first night, we're all right.
Perfect.
and then we enjoy it.
You
I do
mentioned
tend to sort of say to my actors, we will get there. I promise you, I will get you there.
yeah.
You've got to trust that I'll get you there, because I've never not got them there. And then what we create and what we put on stage is what we have been able to do in that time frame. I will not stop working really hard, and I will not stop pushing. If I can see that there's potential, I'll keep pushing for it. I won't stop. I will do my absolute damnedest to make sure that everybody is brilliant and everybody has been able to do the best that they can in the time available, with the money, time, space, blah, 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 available. Yeah. Doesn't always work, sometimes people don't like how I work, or it just doesn't work out. But generally, I'm quite, I'm pretty collaborative, particularly when it comes to the creative team. Like, do your thing. Like, hopefully, I've communicated what I think I want it to look and feel, and what I think the story is, and what I think the atmosphere is, and then let's see what happens. Do your thing. Everyone on a show, everyone can do their job better than I can, so I'll do my job.
Yeah. You mentioned the Hope Theatre a second ago. How
Yeah.
did you go about getting the job of artistic director there?
In 2012, I assisted. It was one of the jobs I actually went for an interview for and got, one of the rare ones. I was lucky enough to assist on an open air season at Grosvenor Park, which is in Chester. And I directed a wonderful director called assisted a wonderful director called Alex Clifton, who has set up and now runs the Story House Theatre in Chester, an amazing place. A sort of library theatre and a community hub for the children and the community there. And one of the plays was directed by Robin Norton-Hale. And at the time, she was, I think, co-artistic director of the King's Head in London. I sort of assisted her a bit in Chester in 2012, but not that much. I did some research for her on a presentation in a rehearsal room, sat in some of her rehearsals. And she sort of kept in touch and saw some of my work on the Fringe. The King's Head, when the Hope was set up, the King's Head set up the Hope in, I think, November 2013.
Well, they're just up the road from each other, aren't they?
That's right, yeah. And then in early 2014, so they've been running it for a few months, and I think they decided they wanted to find someone to sort of take it over, really. And my name sort of I don't really know how it happened. I just know I was invited in for some chats with Robin, and also with Adam Spreadbury-Mayer, who was the other artistic director at the King's Head at the time. And we had chats and meetings, and that was kind of a couple of months. And then I took it over in September 2014, so less than a year after it had opened. And so it was very new, and it wasn't really known. And it done mainly only new writing. It was a place that was open to do only new writing. So that's sort of how that came about. So I took that over in September 2014. Did my first show there in February 2015. But obviously did the first season in the winter, programmed all of that. And then my first show was Love Song of the Electric Bear, which is a Snoo Wilson never produced play about Alan Turing, woken from his deathbed by his childhood teddy bear and flown back through his life. And that did really well. And it was really interesting. I'd been working so hard and doing show after show after show on the London Fringe for 5 years at that point, and never really getting a 5-star review or some of the lovely awards that dot about, the Office. Not really getting that. Not really feeling like I'm kind of going, oh, maybe this one will be the one where it just you just waited for that show that'll just take off a bit, that'll just get a bit of a buzz about it. And I nearly had it with a Cherry Orchard in 2014. That did really well. And as a result of that, sort of, there were actors kind of getting in touch, going, "Oh, I'd really like to work with you. I really like what you do. I really like how it's physical and you use music and movement a lot." And I thought, "Oh gosh, I think I'm sort of starting to find my voice in this world now." And then I did Love Song of Electric Bow, and that really took off. It ended up winning 2 Off West End awards, and then it transferred into the Arts Theatre in the West End in Leicester Square. And that just sort of really put the Hope on the map and put my work as an artist director, but also as someone who directed work at the Hope. It just sort of went ta-da. And then the following year, I did 3 shows, and they all did really well critically and commercially, and they were very varied. And then that year, we ended the year with nominated for Fringe Stage of the Year Stage Awards, and then I won Best Artistic Director at the Off West End Awards. And that was Trent, and then that's the start of 2017. So it's sort of like 2.5 years of just slogging and trying and getting as much different work from as many different first-time and new writers as I could. The thing that's absolutely brilliant about running a building, which I really miss now I'm not doing it, is being the person that says yes to people. I'd like to do this show. Yes. You can't say yes to everybody. So many submissions. 30 a week, and you're only doing 17 shows a year, so it's really hard. And I don't know that I always got it right. You've got to sort of use your casting instinct, really, and kind of but yeah, just being able to sort of say to someone, a first-time writer or first-time director, or being able to say, yes, come in here and do it here, play here.
Yeah.
I
mean,
miss
I'd
that.
love
I
to talk
love
to you
that.
about so a sort of triple-barreled question, really, about the Hope, but I'm going to ask it regardless. Is you sort of said you sort of fell into the job almost, like it sort of came out of nowhere. Did you find any aims that you wanted to achieve at your time there, or were you given any goals? Do you think you achieved them, if they exist? And then, as you mentioned earlier, of course, we were going to ask you this: what made you move on?
Yeah. Absolutely, honestly, my goal was to not fuck it up. I had no idea whether I could run a building or not, but I've always wanted to, and I still want to. I've always wanted to be an artist director of a theatre. I was like, that's the goal. Just didn't want to muck it up. I was absolutely determined that I would give it as much of myself as I could. So I quit my temp job. It becomes a 7-day a week, day and night. It is so all consuming, but it's the only way I thought I should do this, because I thought this is an absolute privilege to be able to do this. But also it's really hard because it's just constant. You can never turn off. And all of a sudden, hundreds of people want something from you, and you can't say yes to everybody, and there's always an issue, and something's going wrong every day, and suddenly you're running a team. So I didn't want to muck it up. I didn't want to ruin my career. I didn't want to ruin the Hope Theatre. Like, if I'd mucked it up, someone else would have come in and it'd be fine, I guess. But I didn't want that to happen. I wanted it to be a really well-respected place on the London Fringe that people wanted to work at. The brilliant thing about the Hope is that we had and they still have it. What Adam and Robin and the King's Head were able to do was set up an agreement with Equity, whereby it was the first 50-seat theatre in London to open with an agreement with Equity, whereby everybody that acts there is paid a legal wage.
It's just fantastic, right? That's brilliant.
It's just something I'm so proud to have been involved in. That's not to say that I think that that people can do what they want. It's a really difficult thing to talk about, because I firmly believe in it, and I felt really proud to be able to do that. So that obviously helps put the Hope on the map, but being the only 50-seat theatre in London that guarantees a legal wage to every actor. But that's not enough. You've got to make sure the work's really good. You've got to make sure that when someone takes a chance on coming to do a I'd always think about the audience that's the non-theatre person, someone who's not in the industry. I used to call them Reg and Sue, and they're in their early 50s in my imagination. They live in Islington, and instead of going to the cinema to watch that lovely film with Kate Winslet in it, they're going to take a chance and pay the same amount of money, 10, 15 quid, to watch this play above a pub. And I want
Alan
them to
Turing and his
come
teddy bear.
back. Yeah, I want them to come back. I want them to, when they come back, it still be good, because it's a different show every 3 weeks, and it's a different. And most people outside the industry don't realise that that's just a succession of different companies creating what every 3 weeks. It's a different company coming in. So I'm really trying to make sure that there's a vein of quality and joy that runs through everything that I program. So I was very, very involved in all of the programming, to the point where I'd sit and watch the dress rehearsal and give notes, which wasn't always massively welcome, but it was in the contract, and I told them that I did it. Like, I would be really involved because I wanted to make sure that we'd all done everything we could to make sure that, and bearing in mind things do go wrong and things don't always work out the way you want them to, but that everything that happened in that room, I took responsibility for. And yeah, like running a team and being essentially the chief executive of a business, all things that are totally new to me. But part of my background was that I was a PA to the chief executive of a housing association in my 20s, and part of that was servicing the board of trustees. So I kind of knew how to run a business and have the board of trustees. It allowed me as a creative to be much bolder and much braver. Like I did an Ionesco for the first time. I did the lesson, which I'd wanted to do, which is almost unstageable. Really difficult play. I did that. I did musicals, which I've not done before. It really allowed me to be bolder, which was a really lucky thing to have. Like, I think I wrung every bit of opportunity I could out of it, but every bit of joy I could out of it, and tried to make sure I shared that with as many people as possible, whilst also understanding that in the end, it all comes down to me. The buck stops with me. If someone's unhappy, it's me they're going to be telling. So it's exhausting.
Yeah,
I did it for 5 years. For 5 years, I went away for my 40th. I went away for a week to New York, and I had to put somebody in charge for a week, and it was so hard to not turn my phone on. But I turned my phone off and put it in a drawer because it was the holiday of a lifetime for my 40th. But that was the only holiday I had in 5 years.
Wow.
It just there's no, you can't stop. You just can't stop. It's constant. It's hundreds of emails a day. Like the amount of work, and like what you want to do is just create theatre, and actually what you end up doing is a lot of admin. But it's brilliant. It's a privilege. It's a joy, and I really miss it. I really miss it. But it's been really tough, obviously, this past year, because Kennedy Blumen, the new artistic director that's come in, I'm so excited. She's wonderful. I'm dead excited. She's a mate, and I really love her. And I was so pleased when the Board of Trustees gave her the job. I was like, that's great. She's going to be brilliant. And obviously, the pandemic hit, and it closed. And that's been sort of doubly heartbreaking that I've lost. I left, but it is like sort of leaving your child. It was my baby. It had been birthed, but I sort of raised it and spent 5 years of my life. That was my living, breathing every moment. And then so it was heartbreaking to know that I was, to hand it over to somebody, and then double heartbreaking to watch them not being able to do their job and not being able to run it because it's closed. Why did I leave? I wanted to have a holiday at some point. I was exhausted. I was emotionally exhausted because we sort of I felt like the Hope hit a peak in 2017, winning the OFFIE, getting stage Fringe of the Year nomination. Suddenly, everybody wants to bring their work over, and it's hard to stay present, and it's hard to stay. And there were lots of limitations on that space, and lots of things like the access isn't great, and you just become more and more uncomfortable with the fact that your theatre isn't accessible because it's a flight of stairs. Things like that kind of really start to get to you.
Yeah. I wanted to ask you.
And then, so it sounds like I'm complaining. I'm not. I was knackered, and I think 5 years is enough. When I took it over, I said I'll try 2 years, maximum 5. If I can't hack it after 2 years, I'll leave. but I was really worried that would damage my. Like, I'm sort of known in the fringe theatre world now, which is so lovely, but that is as a result of the Hope, and it's because I put myself front and center. Like, I was on box office of every opening night of every show. Like, I attached it to my Twitter. I attached it to me as a person. Some buildings you don't know who runs them, and you don't necessarily see that person who runs them very often. I just was front and center. I thought I've got to just take responsibility for this, and also I'd done lots of work. So I'd taken my work to other fringe venues, so I knew exactly what I wanted it to feel like or not feel like for an audience and for artists visiting. Your customers as an artist director are obviously the audience, but they're also the artists that are bringing the work and the actors that bring the work. And yeah, I take that really seriously. But yeah, it's knackering. 5 years was enough, and I want to do stuff that's not for. I want to do stuff for more than 50 people. And I was never. My directing agent was getting really frustrated because she put me up for a job, and I was like, I can't do it. It's 8 weeks away. And I'm dying to go and work at regional. I'm dying to go and work at regional stuff and theatres and stuff around the UK and around the world. And I couldn't leave my job. So I couldn't go and be a director anywhere else. And I'm sure people listening to this going, oh, shut up. At least you had a third and you could do what you want. It's like, yeah, of course. I'd like to do something different now. I'd like to do for more people. I want to run the National Theatre. Do you know what I mean? I've got to get there somehow.
Yeah.
I'm smiling, but I also mean my dream is to run a space that is like what Alex Clifton has done with Storyhouse Theatre in Chester is astonishing. It's right at the heart of the community. It's not just the theatre, like Home in Manchester's Home in Manchester, the Home Theatre in Manchester. It's a community hub, it's a bar, it's a restaurant, it's a cinema, it's a gift shop, there's a couple of performance spaces. It speaks to the community, for the community. You can go in there and have a beer, or you can go in there and watch a really deep, dark drama. That's my goal, to run somewhere like that. And so I'm not going to do that running a 50-seat theatre above pop.
Yeah. Speaking of doing something new, you're currently working at the OFFIE Theatre Company. What are you working on, and what else have you got planned for 2021?
Well, I texted Adam just before this started and went, am I allowed to talk about and am I allowed to talk about and he hasn't got back to me. So things are coming. Well, I'm not allowed to talk about them. Who knows? Perhaps when this gets when you pop this out, perhaps some things would have been announced. But I was really lucky to get so again, that's through the Hope. Adam got in touch with me because he runs this wonderful theatre called the Maltings Theatre in St Albans, which is a 120-seat studio theatre. And he got in touch with me because he sort of, well, in his words, he'd watched what I'd done with the Hope Theatre and how I'd established it. And could I go and help him? Like, could he have a cup of coffee and pick my brains about how I did that? Because he really wanted to put his theatre a bit more on the map and that sort of thing. Although, I mean, the Maltings has a brilliant reputation. It was a really good touring venue and the nicest and stuff, but I think he knew that for whatever reason he got in touch with me, and I've been working with him now for 14 months, and I love it. So it sort of started sort of consultancy work, and then he was like, "Well, I'd love you to bring some stuff here." I was like, "Great," because I would love to do stuff for more than 50 people, not in a room above a pub. So this is great. So there's plays on that list in my Halifax that I can't do in a 50-seat room. There's not enough space. It's like, oh great, I get to do that, and I get to do this, and I get great. And then the pandemic hit, obviously. So I had 3 shows lined up, 2 in 2020 and 1 in 2021 that he commissioned me to do. I was like, oh my god, this is the dream. This is exactly what I want. And then obviously we've not been able to do those. But they also take over an amazing place called the Roman Theatre of Verulamium in St Albans, which is an open air. The remnants is the wrong word. Sorry, my brain is going. It's an archaeological site, and it's where there used to be an old Roman theatre, and they build a stage and they do open air Shakespeare. And he said, "Would you like this year? We normally do one. This year we'd like to do two. Would you like to do one? What, an open air theatre for 300 people? Yes, please. An
Yeah.
open air Shakespeare. Never done Shakespeare in 11. I've never directed Shakespeare professionally. Never, not directed an open air thing. Not directed for more than 50 people. Like, yes, please. And I had a day to come up with a pitch. And so I pitched him Henry V, a sort of new version, a take on Henry V to take account of social distancing. And I did that in the summer, and that was amazing, and a proper dream come true. And I've and then he was like, "Well, and do this thing, do something in November." So then I was doing Stuart Pringle's Papa Tango winning play Trestle, and we had 2 weeks of rehearsal, and then we went into lockdown again. So that's hopefully coming, which is Trestle is a gorgeous. I don't know if you know the play, but it was on at the Southwark Playhouse in, I think, 2017, because it won the Papa Tango that year. Stu Pringle's someone I know because he used to be the artistic director of the Old Red Lion, and it's a play about a man and a woman in their 60s who meet for 5 minutes every week in a village hall in Yorkshire when he's finishing a meeting and she's coming in about to start her Zumba class, and it's just that 5 minutes that they overlap in the room, 2 people in their 60s, and it's so beautiful and so funny, but really hard to get right, and a massive challenge for me because it's a naturalistic piece with a linear narrative, which is really unusual for me. My stuff's normally has some element of magical realism and jumps about in timeline often, and often has loads of multi-rolling in it. This is 2 actors playing 2 people who talk like people in a room. With no weird dream sequences or musical sequences, or although maybe. So hopefully that's coming. Hopefully that's coming really soon. We're trying to find a way of making that happen. I've got fantastic actors working on that. Judy Bond and Chris Pickles, who are wonderful. And hopefully another open air Shakespeare.
That's fantastic.
That's all I'm allowed to say.
We'll come back for more at a later date. It's fantastic, Matthew. Honestly, your passion and your ambition is what I really noted from listening to you today. The idea that you just go, I can do this and it's going to happen. And so far, it seemingly does just keep happening for you. So we really wish you the best with OVO this year. Thank you so much for spending your time with us this evening, imparting your knowledge with us. It's hugely appreciated. I know you've got such a tiring schedule at the moment. We spoke about this before we started recording. So we'll let you get off and have a nice, chilled, relaxing evening.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you. I would say it's very nice of you to say, that I'm driven and all these things that I'm achieving, but there's so much. That's the tip of the iceberg. The rest of it is the constant failure and the constant rejection and the constant not thinking I'm good enough. Like, obviously, I'm putting my game face on here, and if people think, oh, he sounds like a right dick, sounds really up himself. I have exactly the same absolute terrors and fears that everybody else has, that I'm terrible and it's never going to happen. And the only way I know how to do this job is to just get up every day and go, right, come on, what's next? And try and stay positive and try and bring the joy. But there are days where I just want to close the laptop, throw it down the toilet, and go and become go and do a job that does not eat my soul and heart, and doesn't eat my Wizard of Oz bits and my brain and my heart and my courage quite as much as this does. My family, none of them are in this industry, and they all think I'm absolutely nuts. But we do it because we love it, and this year has been a real test for everybody, and I am incredibly lucky. I know I'm incredibly lucky to have been able to create work in this past year, and I was in a show at Christmas as well, again, which closed, but I was in Peter Pan, and that felt really lucky to do as well. So I would say that if anyone's listening to this going, oh, listen to him going on about everything he's done, a lot of the stuff that sits underneath that is failure and fear, and you've just got to keep picking yourself up and pushing on, really.
I think that's the case with all of us. It's everyone has fears in this industry, and conquering fear is what is a huge part of it. I think that's a lovely message to end on, Matthew. So thank you so much.
No worries. Can I just say as well, if there's anybody that listen to this and they want to talk to me about it any more, not hurl abuse at me, but talk to me about it anymore, or have a coffee, or have a little Zoom coffee, or please just get in touch if there's any way that there's anything that anyone wants to talk to me about. I was able to do a little bit of that last year, of talking to other directors who were just starting out or just been doing it for the first couple of years. Please do ask, because I'd love to, because I would love it when I ask Rufus Norris to do that for me, that he'd say yes. Do you know what I mean? Like,
Absolutely.
we have to help one another. So
Yeah.
if anybody wants to ask me anything about what I've talked about, or wants to know anything more about anything that I do, the directing or the acting or the PR or anything that I do in this industry, if I can help in any way, please get in touch. You can find me on Twitter at MatthewParker75.
Thank you for taking the time to listen to our podcast.
We hope you enjoyed it and learned something.
We look forward to having you back in the room very, very soon.